planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. All living entities are rotating throughout the universe, going sometimes up to the higher planetary systems and sometimes down to the lower planets. This is the material disease, which is known as Pravritti Marg. When one becomes intelligent, he takes to Nivritti Marg, the path of liberation, and thus instead of rotating within the material world, he returns home back to Godhead. This is necessary. So, we talked about Pravritti Marg in our previous class, which is being absorbed in the consciousness of advancing in sense gratification. And the result is that one continues in the cycle of birth and death, traveling up and down the 14 planetary systems um, based on one's desires, attachments, and karma. One takes another body. But as a human being, the only goal should be to get out of this cycle of birth and death and endeavor for something that we have not gotten in other species. So we have this verse here in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tasyeva heto prayatet kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam upareyadha tallabhyate dukkhavad anyatha sukham kalena sarvatra gambhira ramhasa. So this verse is saying that people who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmalok, down to the lowest planet, Patal. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be automatically obtained in due course of time, just as one obtains miseries, even though one does not desire for them. So this verse is saying that depending on our karma, we will get happiness that we are destined to get. That would automatically come just like distress comes automatically without asking for. So material happiness would also come. So we should not endeavor for material happiness. We have to endeavor for self-realization, Krishna consciousness. And that is the Nivritti Marg, the path of liberation, solving the problem of birth, death, old age, and disease. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives the definition of mukti here. Nirodho asyanushyanam atmana saha shaktibhi muktir hitva nyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. So this verse says that when one gives up all designations and one gets situated in the original constitutional position, that I am Jivera Swarupoy Krishnera Nityadas, that I am the eternal servant of Krishna, then that is the state of liberation. And then the person tries to engage all of their body, mind, words, actions in the service of Krishna. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu also has a definition of liberation. Iha yase hare dase karmana manasa gira nikhilashvapi avasthasu jivan mukta sa uchate. So anyone who by his actions, minds, and words lives only for the transcendental loving service of the Lord is considered a liberated soul, even though he may appear in a condition of material existence. So another thing Prabhupada mentions in the purport is that when one concludes that in the material world there is nothing but repeated birth and death, he tries to return home back to Godhead. So, meaning that when one is convinced that this material world is not meant for our enjoyment, that this is not our real home. Like we heard previously, Prabhupada said this nice statement that I am convinced that I have gone through a varieties of stages of life. I have got full experience of this material world. I don't want it. That is determination. Society, family, love, friendship, that's all nonsense. I have tasted. I'm no more interested with this material world. So when we are convinced like that, then we can take to this path of Nivritti Marg, and then we will do all activities to please Krishna. Rishabdev also mentions about how we can get to this path of liberation. Mahat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes tamodwaram yoshitam sangi sangam mahantaste samachitta prashanta viman vimanyavah shuradha sadhavo ye. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities, Mahatmas. And who are these Mahatmas? Here it says that the Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. So when we serve Mahatmas and devotees, we get their qualities. So if you want to develop a particular quality, then serve the devotees who have that quality. So example is given that of Narad Muni, who was a son of the maid servant, and he served the Bhakti Vedantis who stayed at his house during the Chaturmasya period. And Narad Muni, he served them, and mute someone. So Narad Muni served them and heard Krishna Katha from them, and that's how he got liberated. And in his next life, he actually became Narad Muni. So we should know that we can get bhakti only from a bhakta. So, and we heard before that it is only ignorance that takes us, um, that leads us to continue in the cycle of birth and death, to go up and down to hellish planets and to take birth in lower species. And this ignorance can be removed by association with devotees, serving devotees, hearing from devotees, Krishna Katha and the Shastras, and getting the causeless mercy of devotees. So that's what I thought this verse was talking about. So we can move to the next verse. Verse 3. Adharmal lakshana nana narakas chanuvarnitaha manvantarascha vyakhyatta adya swabhav swayambhuva yataha. Translation. You have also described, so Parikshit Maharaj is saying to Shukdev Goswami, you have also described at the end of the 5th canto the varieties of hellish life that result from impious activities, and you have described in the 4th canto the first Manvantara, which was presided over by the Swambhuva Manu, the son of Lord Brahma. Priyavratotana pador vamshastacharitāni cha dvipa varsha samudradri nade upayan vanaspatin धारामण्डल संस्थानं भागलक्षणा मानतः ज्योतिषां विवरणं च येथदम् असृजद् विभु. Translation. Does someone want to read this verse?
I can read.
Sure, Prabhu.
My dear Lord, you have described the dynasties and characteristics of King Priyavrat and King Uttanapad. The Supreme Personality of Godhead created this material world with various universes, planetary systems, planets and stars, with varied lands, seas, oceans, mountains, rivers, gardens and trees, all with different characteristics. These are divided among this planet Earth, the luminaries in the sky, and the lower planetary systems. You have very clearly described these planets and the living entities who live on them. Okay, so purport. Here the words Yathedam Asrijad Vibhu clearly indicate that the Supreme, the great Almighty Personality of Godhead, created this entire material world with its different varieties of planets, stars, and so forth. Atheists try to conceal the hand of God, which is present in every creation, but they cannot explain how all these creations could come into existence without a competent intelligence and almighty power behind them. Simply to imagine or speculate is a waste of time. In Bhagavad Gita 10.8, the Lord says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo I am the origin of everything. Mata sarvam pravartate. Whatever exists in the creation emanates from me. Iti matva bhajante mam. Buddha bhava samanvitaha. When one fully understands that I create everything by my omnipotence, one becomes firmly situated in devotional service and fully surrenders at my lotus feet. Unfortunately, the unintelligent cannot immediately understand Krishna's supremacy. Nonetheless, if they associate with devotees and read authorized books, they may gradually come to the proper understanding. Although this may take many, many births, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Vasudev Krishna, sorry, Vasudev Krishna is the creator of everything, and his energy is displayed in various ways. As explained in Bhagavad Gita 7.4 and 5, a combination of the material energy, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu, and the spiritual energy, the living entity, exists in every creation. Therefore, the same principle, the combination of the Supreme Spirit and material elements, is the cause of the cosmic manifestation.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So here Prabhupada says that nonetheless, if they associate with devotees and read authorized books, they may gradually come to the proper understanding, although it may take many, many births. So surrendering to Krishna may take many, many births, or it may take 1 minute, as Prabhupada said in one lecture. It all depends on how fast we want to accelerate our progress. So, like in the Ayur Harati Vaipumsam verse, the purport, we read this statement Prabhupada made. We need to utilize the human form of life to realize our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord by acceleration of devotional service. So, we need to have that greed and eagerness to accelerate our progress in bhakti. We need to develop a passionate attraction to Krishna, which is called lolyam. We should think that in this very life, I want to attain Krishna. So, there's a quote by Prabhupada. Yes, we have. Let me see. Okay. Prabhupada says that if one develops this lolyam or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in a particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of God. Otherwise, there is no material calculation for the value of the ticket by which one can enter the kingdom of God. The only price for such entrance is lolyam lalasamai, or desire and great eagerness. So I wanted to read this article in the Art of Chanting on this eagerness of for seeing Krishna. Um, I can read. So chant with longing. The word prayojan means goal or the object of attainment, but it also means necessity. Lord Gauranga taught that the greatest goal or the ultimate necessity of human life is to attain pure love of God. Prema Pumartho Mahan. The soul needs nothing but love, Krishna Prem. It has no other necessity. In Bhajan Rahasya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes the same point by saying that a devotee possesses only one treasure, his intense hankering for spiritual perfection in love of God. Hankering means passionately craving for something, thirsting for it, longing, yearning, and wishing hope against hope to attain it. Ramananda Rai describes that a devotee must have deep greed or hankering to attain pure devotion to Krishna. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate tatra lolyamapi mulyamekalam janma koti sukrite na labhyate. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can be attained only by paying one price, that is, intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. Material greed is a disease that must be cured, But greed for Krishna is healthy and must be cultivated. A progressive devotee always keeps the fire of intense hankering for prema burning in his heart. This fire will consume all nonsense thoughts and material desires. A lifetime of hankering for Krishna prema. Let me see. Mute. A lifetime of hankering for Krishna Prem transforms into a day-to-day craving and longing to hear Krishna's flute, to receive Krishna's darshan, and see Krishna's intimate pastimes with Radhika and the Vraj Gopis. One desiring spiritual perfection should constantly express all these longings while chanting Krishna's holy name. In other words, one should chant the holy name with intense greed to hear Krishna's flute, see his gorgeous form, and witness his beautiful pastimes. When one finally sees Krishna in his holy name, then all material greed will finish. Of course, one should still behave in an exemplary way so that Krishna will desire to see him. But at the same time, one should know that there is nothing wrong with desiring to see Krishna. We should desire intensely to see and be with Krishna. Gaur Kishodas Babaji considered his Naam Japa to be fruitless without seeing the beautiful form of Krishna while chanting the holy name. Gaur Kishodas Babaji could not tolerate unsuccessful bhajan. When there was no Naam Sfurti, he would often throw himself in the Ganga. He entered the water up to the neck and would only come out when the name would appear. In many purports, Srila Prabhupada encourages us to become eager to see Krishna. This eagerness is wanted. Then you can see God. Some way or other, if you develop this eagerness that I must see Krishna, then Krishna will be seen. Krishna will respond if you are actually eager to see him. Rupa Goswami has advised that it is on the matter of the gopis talking. One gopi is advising another gopi, my dear friend, there is one boy. His name is Govinda. He is standing on the bank of Yamuna near Keshi Ghat and he is playing on his flute. And he is so beautiful, especially during the full moon night. Please do not go there if you have got intention to enjoy in this material world with your family members, children, and husband. The idea is that if you once see Krishna, then you will forget all this nonsense material enjoyment. That is seeing Krishna. A devotee desires to see Krishna, but he says, I don't mind if you break my heart by not being present. I don't mind you break my heart. Because a devotee is always anxious to see Krishna, just like Radharani is always anxious to see Krishna. But Krishna does not come. Just like Krishna left all the gopis and immediately went to Mathura, so these gopis remained simply crying for the rest of their lives. That is pure devotion. Krishna made them broken hearted. Never mind, they thought, we shall remain broken hearted, crying all the life. Krishna, you do your own, you do your business. That is love of Krishna. We should follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. They were always serving Krishna. They never said, now I have seen Krishna, or last night I danced with Krishna. No, they were crying, where is Krishna? And they were always searching after him, wondering when they would finally be able to see him. We should also desire intensely to see and be with Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya was eating, sleeping, or awake, he did not talk of anything but Lord Krishna. Devotees spend their days and nights hearing descriptions of Krishna, speaking about them, and meditating upon them in their hearts. The devotees think, when will Krishna appear before me? When will I be able to associate with devotees? When will I become pure in heart? This is how the devotees think in their hearts, and such thoughts bring them great happiness. Assuming the role of a Vaishnava, Mahaprabhu also saw Krishna present everywhere in the world. So we should also think when we are chanting, when will I see Krishna? When will I go back to my real home? When will I associate with devotees? When will I follow my sadhana properly? So, like we have this song, Kabe habe bolo se deen amar अपराध गुची शुद्ध नामे रुचि कृपा बोले हाबे हृदय संचारा त्रिनदी कहीना कबे निज मानी सहिष्णुता गुण हृदय ते आनी काबे हाबे बोलो से दीन अमार काबे हाबे बोलो से दीन अमार. Oh, when will that day be mine? When will I, when will you, Krishna, give me your blessings, erase my offenses? When will I taste the essence of the holy name? When will I cry out that I have no desire for anything in this world, wealth, followers, beautiful women? When will my body be covered with goosebumps and my voice be broken when I chant the Hare Krishna mantra? When will I give up all the thoughts of this world and society and run like a madman, singing and dancing? So, like that, when will I feel compassion for all living beings? When will I forget my own pleasure in genuine humility? And when will I go from door to door preaching the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So, this is how we should be uh, longing for when we are chanting. Oh, when will that day come? So, like that, we need to develop greed to have more and more association with devotees, hear more and more about the Lord, chant more and more, and this way keep on improving our sadhana and make a resolve that in this life I will see Krishna. I want to see Krishna. Okay, so I'll move on to the next verse now. Can someone read this verse?
Okay, I can read. Nobody else wants to read?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mataji.
Oh, sorry, Mataji, I'm on mute. Okay. अधुने अधुनेह महाभाग यथैव नरकान्नरः नानोग्रायातनां नेयात् तन्मे व्याख्यातुम् अर्हसि. O great, fortunate, and opulent Sukadeva Goswami, now kindly tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions in which they suffer terrible pains. You want me to read the purport, Mataji?
Yes, yes, Mataji.
Okay. In the 26th chapter of the 5th canto, Sukadeva Goswami has explained that people who commit sinful acts are forced to enter hellish planets and suffer. Now, Maharaja Parikshit, being a devotee, is concerned with how this can be stopped. A Vaishnava is para dukha dukhi. In other words, he has no personal troubles, but he is very unhappy to see others in trouble. Prahlad Maharaja said, "My Lord, I have no personal problems, for I have learned how to glorify your transcendental qualities and thus enter a trance of ecstasy. I do have a problem, however, for I am simply thinking of these rascals and fools who are busy with Maya Sukha, temporary happiness, without knowledge of devotional service unto you. This is the problem faced by a Vaishnava. Because a Vaishnava fully takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he personally has no problems, but because he is compassionate toward the fallen, conditioned souls, he is always thinking of plans to save them from their hellish life in this body and the next. Parikshit Maharaj therefore anxiously wanted to know from Sukadeva Goswami how humanity can be saved from gliding down to hell. Sukadeva Goswami has already explained how people enter hellish life, and he could also explain how they could be saved from it. Intelligent men must take advantage of these instructions. Unfortunately, however, the entire world is lacking Krishna consciousness, and therefore people are suffering from the grossest ignorance and do not even believe in a life after this one. To convince them of their next life is very difficult because they have become almost mad in their pursuit of material enjoyment. Nonetheless, our duty, the duty of all sane men, is to save them. Parikshit Maharaj is the representative of one who can save them.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. So here Prabhupada says a Vaishnava is para dukha dukhi. In other words, he has no personal troubles, but he is very unhappy to see others in trouble. So I was hearing one lecture by Prabhupada, and he's talking why a Vaishnava is always happy. So Prabhupada says Vaishnava himself is very happy because he is in direct connection with Krishna. He personally has no complaint because a Vaishnava is satisfied simply by serving Krishna. That's all. He doesn't want anything. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagada, isha kamal. This is Vaishnava. He doesn't want anything. Why he will want? If he becomes a servant of Krishna, then what does he want? Suppose if you become servant of a very, very big man, then what is the question of your want? This is intelligence. Any servant of any big man, he is bigger than his master because he is given. Master is given so many varieties of food. Master takes little and the balance the servant eats. Prabhupada laughs. So, where is his want? There is no question of want. Just try to become servant of God and all of your necessities will be sufficiently fulfilled. This is intelligence. Just like a rich man's child, does he want anything from father? No, he simply wants father and mother. The father mother knows what does he want, how he will be happy. That is the duty of the father and mother. Similarly, this is very good intelligence. Just to try to become the sincere servant of Krishna. All your necessities of life will be sufficiently supplied. There is no question of asking. So we should not go to God for begging some material benefit. That is not actual devotion. We shall go to God for begging how one can be engaged in his service. That should be the begging. Hare Krishna means Hare, O energy of God, O Krishna, Lord Krishna, please engage me in your service. This is Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It is simply praying, Oh my Lord Krishna, O Srimati Radharani, Krishna's energy, kindly engage me in your service. That's all. Finished all business. This is Vaishnava. So Vaishnava has no necessity. He knows that I have no necessity. My only business is to serve Krishna, and therefore he is happy in all conditions. So when we perform bhakti unconditionally and uninterruptedly, then that would completely satisfy ourselves. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yatho bhakti radokshje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So in this verse, Parikshit Maharaj, he's a Vaishnava and he personally has no unhappiness. Now he knows that he's going to die in 7 days, but when he heard that so many sinful people are going to hell and they are suffering in that way, he became very sorry. So he's para dukha dukhi. So just like Prahlad Maharaj, he tells Narsinghadev this verse here. Nevo dvije paradurattaya vaitaranyas twadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chitta sochetato vimukha chetasa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharamadvato vimudhan. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying, O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. And we have many other examples like that of 6 Goswamis. We have this Sad Goswami Ashtakam. त्याक्त्वा तूर्णमशेषमण्डलपति श्रेणिं सदा तुच्छवत् भूत्वा दीनगणेशको करुणया गोपीं कण्ठाश्रितो गोपीभावरसामृतप्तिलहरी कलोलमग्नो मुहुर् वन्दे रूपसनातनाय रघुयुगो Shri Jiva Gopalako. So just like Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, they were prime ministers in the government, and they gave up such exalted post of the minister of the government. And Prabhupada says, as a minister, they were associating with very, very big men. Mandalapati. Mandalapati means big merchants, big businessmen. So they gave up this company, Sada Tuchhavat, thinking, oh, what is this nonsense? What is the use of meeting all these men? And what did they become? Bhutva Deen Ganeshako Karunaya Kopin Kantha Shrito. They became mendicants with a small loin cloth, one water pot only. That's all, no other possessions. And why? Bhutva Bhutva Deen Ganeshako Karunaya. They wanted to show their mercy to the suffering humanity. So in this way, they adopted the change of life. So this is Vaishnava. Vaishnava personally has no demand for anything, no unhappiness. He's completely satisfied, but he's always unhappy seeing the sufferings of others. So I was remembering one pastime that we had read from this Krishna Kathamrita Bindu about Janak Maharaj. Janak Maharaj's compassion for other living entities, uh, and the effect of a devotee association and the power of the holy name. So I want to read this pastime. It's not too long. Would someone be able to read it?
I can read, Mataji.
Sure,
Janaka
Mataji.
Maharaja's visit to hell. Janaka Maharaja is the father of Sita and a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. It is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.20 that he is one of the 12 great authorities on religious principles in this universe. The following story from Padma Purana, Patala Khanda, 1831-72, of how Janaka Maharaja once visited hell illustrate the supreme potency of the holy name and the association with saintly persons. Lord Anantasesha once narrated a wonderful account of how King Janaka visited the abode of Yamaraja. After a long time, Janaka Maharaja gave up his body through the process of yoga. A divine aeroplane decorated with many bells descended and Janaka Maharaja boarded it. On the way, the airplane came near to the abode of Yamaraja, the Lord of Death. There, sinners were suffering punishment in millions of hells. When the wind that had touched the body of Janaka came to them, they felt great joy and their misery disappeared. Then those persons oppressed by sins, wanting to keep Janaka's association, began to lament. They spoke piteously to Janaka Maharaja, O blessed one, please do not leave. We who are greatly tormented are feeling happy due to contact with the breezes that have touched your body. Hearing their words, the very righteous king became filled with pity and thought to himself, if due to touch of the breezes that have touched my body, I am bringing some happiness to the residents here, then I will stay in this place. This is heaven for me. Thinking like this, the king stayed there by the gateway to hell. After some time, Yamaraja himself, who inflicts severe torment upon sinners, came to that gateway. There he saw Maharaja Janaka, full of mercy and a doer of great meritorious deeds, standing by the doorway. Yamaraja smiled and said to Janaka, O king, you are Sarvadharma Shiromani, the crushed jewel of piety. Why have you come here? This is a place for wicked sinners who cause harm to others. Men like you who perform meritorious deeds do not come to this place. Only those persons who deceive others, who are engaged in criticizing others, and who are intent on stealing others' wealth come here. A man who abandons a religious wife who is serving him without faults comes here. One who, out of greed for wealth, deceives his friend comes here and receives intense punishment from me. Yamaraja then said, those persons who do not remember Lord Ramachandra with their mind, words, or deeds, I throw into hell and have boiled. Those who have remembered the Lord of the goddess of fortune leaves the sufferings of hell and quickly go to Vaikunta. O very intelligent king, my servants, unable to even look at persons like you, bring those who are great sinners. Therefore, you should leave this place and go enjoy many pleasures. Enter the excellent airplane and go reap the fruits of the religious merits you have earned. Hearing the words of Yamaraja with great compassion, Janaka replied, O Lord, out of pity on these beings, I shall not go to Vaikunta. Although situated in this place, they are feeling some comfort due to the breezes blowing my body. If you release all of these persons living in hell, then I shall be happy and will proceed to Vaikuntha. Hearing the words of Janaka, Yamaraja pointed out to him each of those living in hell and said, this one had sex with his friend's wife, that had confined in him. Therefore, I am having him roasted on an iron stake for thousands of years. Afterwards, he will be born as a pig. Then, when he again takes birth in a human body, he will be a ninch. This one repeatedly raped the wife of another man. Therefore, he will be roasted in the hell known as Raurava for 100 years. This wicked one stole the wealth of others and enjoyed it. Therefore, having cut off his hands, I shall cook him in pus and blood. This one did not honor or welcome, even with words, a guest who had come in to him oppressed by hunger. He will be dropped into the Tamishra hell, which is full of fire. Their bees will torment him for 100 years. Ayantavam parashyochair nindam kurvanna lajjita ayam apyashnot karnau prerayan bahushasthatam. This shameless person loudly criticized another, this one here, with great interest. Listened to that criticism many times. Therefore, these two have fallen into a dark well. This one who deceived his friend is being roasted in the hell known as Raurava. After making all of these persons eat the fruit of their sins, I shall release them. O best among men who have accumulated vast amounts of religious merit, please leave this place. Having pointed out the sinful persons, Yamaraja became quiet. With his eyes full of tears, Janaka, the great devotee of Lord Rama, said, tell me, how can these miserable beings quickly be set free from hell and attain happiness? Yamaraja replied, these persons have never worshipped Lord Vishnu. They have never listened to the transcendental accounts of Lord's activities. How then can they be free from hell? O great king, if you desire to release them, even though they are great sinners, they give them the following religious merit possessed by you. Once you getting up in the morning, you meditated with a pure heart upon Lord Raghunatha Ramachandra, who is known as Mahapapa Harabhidaha, the remover of great sins. Give them the religious merit which you obtained that morning when, with a pure heart, you uttered Rama, Rama. Obtaining that merit, they will get free from hell. Hearing these words of the intelligent Yamaraja, the great King Janaka gave those persons the religious merit obtained by him from his birth. Janaka said, let these persons be released from hell due to the religious merit earned by me from birth by the worship of Raghunatha. As soon as he said this, those persons dwelling in hell immediately were freed from their suffering condition and obtained divine bodies. They said to King Janaka, O king, by your favor, in one moment we have been freed from miserable hell and will now go to the highest position, Parampadam. Seeing those now effulgent persons freed from hell, Janaka Maharaja, who desired the welfare of all living beings, was very pleased in his mind. All those persons praised the great King Janaka, the very treasure house of compassion, and went to the spiritual world.
Thank you, Mataji. So, with this pastime, we can see that what the association with the sadhu can do. Just a moment association with the sadhu, lava matra. Sadhu sanga sarva shastra hoy. Lava matra sadhu sanga sarva siddhi hoy. I'm sorry. So it relieves the suffering of all conditioned souls, just this moment association with sadhus. So we also saw Janak Maharaj's compassion, that he was not willing to leave the hell to go to Vaikuntha, knowing that his presence was giving relief to others suffering in hell. And also we can see the power of the holy name. Janak Maharaj gave his religious merit of just chanting Ram Ram once, and with that merit, all the sinners burning in the hells, they got relieved from their suffering. So this is example of a Vaishnava. He's paradukha dukhi. He's always unhappy to see that someone else is suffering because of lack of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, a Vaishnava is always busy preaching Krishna consciousness throughout the world. So I was hearing a class by Radhesham Prabhu, and he mentioned this one pastime of Prabhupada. So one time someone asked Prabhupada, why are you building a new temple for Krishna? Why you people purchase so much marble, make a beautiful marble temple in different cities of the country? Instead, I feel that why don't you sell all this marble and have the money to feed the poor people? Is it not much? Is it not a much greater service? So then Prabhupada, in response to this question, told a short story. And Prabhupada said, okay, you should answer my question. So then Prabhupada says, let's say you see a small boy wandering in the street, and he's the son of a very rich man, like Tata, Birla, like that. And the boy is crying, he's hungry, and he's wearing torn clothes. And it seems that there is no one to take care for him. So one man saw the child crying and he thought the child is hungry. So he gave the child something to eat, like bread and jam. And the child ate it, but he continued to cry. So another man, he looked at the child and thought he's crying because he's sick. So he gave the child some medicine and the child took it, but he again continued to cry. And another man, he thought that the child is crying because of torn clothes. So he gave the child fresh new clothes and the child wore the clothes, but he still continued to cry. But the fourth man, he looked at the child and thought, oh, this child is crying because he has become an orphan, wandering in the street all alone. Let me find who his parents are. So then he found out his father is one of the richest men of the country. So this man, he picked up the child and he asked him, why did you leave your home? So this child said, I had a quarrel with my father. Then this man, he made him understand that how much his father loves him, that he should go back to his home. And so this man, he then made a phone call to the father, and the father arranged for a private plane, a charter plane to come to pick up this small kid. And he thanked the man who gave the kid back to him. And then the child went back home. And what do you think happened at home? The father gave the child abundant food to him, varieties of food, varieties of clothes, a big house to live, and the child was very happy. So then Prabhupada asked this person who questioned him, out of these four men, who did the best service? So without any hesitation, this person replied that naturally the fourth man did the best service because because one fellow gave him food, one fellow gave him medicine, the other gave him clothes, but this last fellow, he connected the orphan back to his father, and the father could provide everything to the child. So Prabhupada said, yes, that's what we are doing in ISKCON. All the people wandering in this world have become orphans and they are crying. They have become anath because they have turned away from Krishna. So we are making these anath people sanat. Sanat means that they have a master now. We make them come to our temple. We teach them the Hare Krishna mantra. We relieve them all the bad habits. We make them clean and pure, and they lead a pure life. And at the end of the life, a Vaikuntha plane comes and takes them back to their real home, Vaikuntha, from where they have come originally. So this man, he was totally convinced with this answer from Prabhupada, and he became a Krishna devotee. Then he understood that there are these varieties of organization offering all types of social service, giving food, clothes, and medicines, because they are all giving something to the body, and this body will eventually die at the end of the life, and again the person would be reborn and again would have to suffer through a second class, fourth class life, and so on according to his karma. So the best service can be to make someone who is anath sanat. And I was reading this article by Giriraj Swami, Always Remain Srila Prabhupada's Dog. Uh, it kind of talks about the same things that we have been discussing. So, can someone read this article?
Can I read, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
The following is
But we can't hear you properly.
can you hear now?
No.
I don't know. almost every morning in Bombay. Is that it? Can you hear?
Yes, yes, Mataji. Yes.
Almost every morning in Bombay, Srila Prabhupada used to walk on Juhu Beach. One morning, I was feeling especially wretched and miserable. Although so many other devotees were present, Srila Prabhupada began to speak as if he were addressing me personally. He quoted a Sanskrit verse and said, there are two words, anatha and sanatha. Natha means master, so anatha means without master, and sanatha means with master. The whole goal of life is to become sanatha, with master. In the morning on Juhu Beach, many gentlemen used to walk their dogs. Srila Prabhupada pointed to a fat and fit gentleman walking with an equally fat and fit dog. The man was walking briskly and confidently with his dog on his leash, and the dog was walking equally briskly and confidently with his master by his side. Srila Prabhupada commented that every dog wants a good master. If the dog has a good master, he's happy. He holds his head high, he wags his tail. He knows that his master will maintain and protect him, so he has no anxiety. But the strict dog, the poor fellow, has no master. Therefore, he's always suffering. Srila Prabhupada then pointed to some stray dogs. They have no master. They do not know where they will sleep. How do we get food? Other dogs bark at them. Children throw stones at them. They are always in anxiety. Srila Prabhupada stopped walking. He planted his cane firmly in the sand of Juhu Beach. Although I stood behind many of the devotees who moved close around him, with his eyes laden with love and compassion, he looked in my eyes. So we should be sanatha, protected, not anatha, often. We should have our master and be exclusively devoted to him. Then we will feel confident in his protection and always be happy. Quoting the verse again, Srila Prabhupada explained each Sanskrit word. Manoratha, the chariot of the mind. Mental concussion is driving us here, there, and here, there. We have no peace. But when we have our perfect master to serve, we become peaceful, prasanta, and jubilant. I have got my master. I have no cares and anxiety. This is the ideal of life, to become sanatha jivitam, living with hope that I have got my master who will give me protection. I knew that Srila Prabhupada was speaking directly to me, addressing my present need in Krishna consciousness. Without my even asking or saying anything, he knew my heart and gave the perfect solution through his instructions. Thus, he exemplified the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.736. Anuvratam Sishyanam Putranam Cha Dvijota Dvijotama Anaprishtham Api Bruyur Guravodina Vatsalaha. Those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples, and sons, and without being asked by them. The spiritual master describes all that is knowledge. Thereafter, I always try to remember and follow the instructions Srila Prabhupada gave me on Juhu Beach. Although I had caught some of the words from the verse and Srila Prabhupada's explanation, I very much wanted to find the verse but could not. Then several years later, I came across the same verse quoted in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhavantam ivanu charan nirantara prasanta nishesha manorathan rathantara kadaham aikantika nitya kinkara praharshayishyami sanatha jivitam. By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your permanent eternal servant? and always feel joyful to have such a fitting master. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 1.206. Reading the purport, I found the same instructions Srila Prabhupada had given in Juhu Beach. Just as a dog or servant is very satisfied to get a competent, perfect master, or as a child is completely satisfied to possess a competent father, so the living entity is satisfied by completely engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord. He thereby knows that he has a competent master to save him from all kinds of danger. I realize that Srila Prabhupada is so perfect that he always spoke on the basis of scripture. At the same time, because of his tremendous compassion and humanity, he could say just the right thing in the right way to deeply touch the heart of the listener. Now, whenever I walk on Juhu Beach and see the different types of dogs, those with masters and those without, I remember Srila Prabhupada's instructions and pray that I will always remain Srila Prabhupada's dog. Giriraj Swami. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So, if we choose Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, and our Guru as our master, then we will remain totally joyful and satisfied and know that they will protect us from all the dangers, that we don't need anything else but just to serve them. But the problem is that we are still serving bad masters. We have this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Kamadinam katina katida palita durnideshas tesham jatamai na karuna na tripa nopashanti utsrajitan atha yadu pate sampratam labda buddhis tvam ayatah sharanam abhayam mam niyunksh shavatma dasya. So here this devotee is praying, "Oh my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me." So these are the bad masters that we are serving, our lusty desires. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, but recently my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to the transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires, and I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. So we should give up serving all other bad masters and serve Krishna and Guru and Vaishnavas exclusively. Like we have this song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. सर्वस्व तोमार चरणे संपिया পড়েছে তোমারা ঘরে তুমি তো ঠাকুর তোমারা কুকুর বলিয়া জানাহু মোরে বাঁধিয়া নিকটে আমরে পালিবে রহেবু তোমারা দ্বারে প্রতিপা জনের আসিতে না দেব Rakhibu Gadera Pare. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying, let me become a dog. I surrender all my possessions to you. I fall prostrate before your house. You are the Supreme Lord, and like consider me your household dog. And you maintain me. I will remain at your doorstep, serving you like that. So like that, we should become a dog of our Guru, of our Vaishnavas. So as we were reading in the purport, Prabhupada was saying that devotee is happy that he has no personal concerns, but he is concerned for other suffering souls. And we discussed that preaching Krishna consciousness is the best humanitarian work and the best form of charity we can give to others. Because if someone gets knowledge of Krishna consciousness, he will at once become joyful. Even though he is going through material difficulties, he will not suffer those difficulties. Like we have this verse here. अहो अहो भीर्ना कलेर्विद्युते सुधा सुधारा मधुरं पदे पदे दिने दिने चन्दन चन्द्रशीतलं यशो यशोदातनयस्य गीयते. That whoever sings the glories of Yashoda's son Krishna, which are as cooling as a sandalwood and camphor, they will not be troubled by these days of Kali Yuga. For them, at every step, there is torrential flood of sweetest nectar. And also because if a person starts practicing bhakti, his material conditions can actually improve, because we know that all the sins are destroyed with bhakti. Aprarabdha, kutam, and bijam, all these sins are destroyed. So Prabhupada says that the future of the devotee is always bright. So the present becomes joyful and the future is also ensured to be bright. So what else one needs? If the present is good and the future is bright and there is a confirmation, what else do we need? So, but we always worry about the future, whether we will have enough bank balance, whether we'll have insurance, we'll have a nice place to live, whether we'll have loved ones with us. So we think about that for the future, but we should have faith in Krishna's words that Krishna says that my devotee will never perish. Kaunteya pratijanahi na me bhaktya pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Here in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pashya pranashyami sa cha me na pranashyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. So we should not worry about the future. Our future is bright. So we should focus on the present, and we should be thoroughly convinced that my ultimate benefit lies in my one pointed surrender to Krishna, and especially surrendering to the holy name. Then, if we are convinced, we can also convince others. So, in this way, preaching Krishna consciousness and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books is the best form of charity, best act of compassion. So, I was reading this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me read this. Aho dainyam aho kastam parakye shana bhangurhe yan nopa kuryad aswarther martaya swa janati vigrahe. So the context is here, this is Dadachi saying this verse, and basically the context is that the demigods are coming to him to ask his body to make a thunderbolt to kill Vitrasura. And here is how Dadachi is responding to that request. So he's saying that this body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. So, this is what the devotee thinks. Anyways, my body is going to be destroyed sooner or later and is given to me for a short time. But let me make the best use of my body and its possessions for the benefit of others, rather than engaging in it in sense gratification, which will give me misery in this life and also in my future lives. And Prabhupada quotes this verse. एतवा जन्मा साफल्यं देहिनाम इह देहिषु प्राणेरथादिया vacha shreya acharanam sada. That it is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. And Bharat Bhumi te hoila manushya janma yar, janma sarthak kari karo paropkar. One who has taken birth in as a human being in the land of Bharat, Varsh, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all people. So, like we have the example of Prabhupada himself, how much he was so much concerned with the suffering living entities who have forgotten about their relationship with Krishna, that Prabhupada, he left his peaceful life in Vrindavan at the age of 70. He took so much trouble going through the cargo ship, suffering heart attacks on the way, coming to a country where he didn't know anyone, didn't have any place to stay, didn't have much money in his pocket, and then preaching to a very difficult audience, the hippies, and trying to make them into devotees. So I was reading Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrit. I have taken few snippets from Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrit to show Prabhupada's qualities of compassion and positivity and resilience in the face of obstacles. We see that even if Prabhupada was in a very difficult situation, whether economically or materially, he never stopped to envision the bright future, and he kept on thinking of ideas of how to enhance his preaching efforts. So Satsvarupa Maharaj quotes about this. From early days in New York, when Prabhupada he was struggling to get some financial help from many people in India, and he didn't have any disciples at that point, and he didn't have a permanent place to stay in New York. There, Prabhupada met one person, and this person is saying, we can understand the consciousness of Prabhupada. So this person says that he seemed to know that he would have temples filled up with devotees. He would look out and say, I'm not a poor man, I am rich. There are temples and books, they are existing, they are there, but the time is separating us from them. He always mentioned we and spoke about the one who sent him, his spiritual master. He didn't know people at that time, but he said, I am never alone. He always looked like a lonely man to me. So we can also think that if you're not able to do something today because of our limitation, we can hope and aspire that yes, one day I will be able to do this. I will become a disciplined and determined bhakta. I will get up at 3 a.m. or 3:30 a.m. and chant my rounds attentively, and this day will happen soon. Not only we should have that thought, but also we need to act upon that thought and constantly remind ourselves of where we want to go and what we want to achieve. At another place, Satswarup Maharaj mentions, these days of struggle were real enough and very difficult, but his transcendental consciousness was always predominant. He was not living in Manhattan consciousness, but was absorbed in dependence upon Krishna. Just as when on the Jaladuta he had suffered his heart attacks, his reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita had supplied him the nectarian of life. He had already succeeded. Certainly, he wanted to provide Radha and Krishna a temple in New York, but his success was that he was remembering Krishna even in New York City in the winter of 1965-66, whether the world recognized him or not. Not a day went by when he did not work on Krishna's book, Srimad Bhagavatam, and not a day went by when he did not offer food to Krishna and speak on Krishna's philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, and he is never lost to me. And Krishna assures his pure devotees that my devotee will never be vanquished. There was never any doubt about this for Prabhupada. So, devotee knows that the outcome does not matter. It is the endeavor that matters. That's why the devotee is always enthusiastic, even amidst of difficulties. And we should not stop our sadhana and our services even amidst of difficulties. Like we read, that was a difficult time. Prabhupada did not have a proper place to stay and it was very cold. He did not have proper clothes, but not even a day went by when he did not work on his translations and chanting and doing all the other services for Krishna. So here's a quote by Prabhupada in a letter he sent to his disciple. We are trying to please Krishna, that is all. We simply must go on with our business to the best of our ability. We must always sincerely try to do our best with great determination. This is the transcendental position. Success or failure, this is not our business. We leave that up to Krishna. So Prabhupada, he had always the mission statement of his Guru Maharaj right in front of him. He was never distracted from that mission statement. So this is a memory of Prabhupada in India when he was a grihastha. His business was not doing well and he had limited funds, but that didn't stop him from his preaching work. So Abhay had no fixed accommodation after he left home, but his determination to push on with preaching was undeterred. He felt alone, had no money to buy proper clothes and walked everywhere to save money. Still, he wrote articles and established them in his magazine, Back to Godhead. He single-handedly wrote, proofread, brought the paper and delivered it to the printer, and also distributed these magazines. And at the time when Prabhupada was in New Delhi, when he was producing the Back to Godhead magazine. So this is all from Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrit. I've gotten some snippets. So here Satsvarup Maharaj is saying, nor was maintenance a problem. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukdev Goswami has declared that a devotee's problem was not food, clothing, or shelter. If one had no bed, he could always lie on the ground and use his arms for a pillow. For clothes, he could always find some rejected garments in the street. For food, he could live on fruits from the trees, and for lodging, he could stay in the mountain caves. Nature supplies all necessities. A transcendentalist should not flatter materialists to maintain himself. Of course, Abhay wasn't living in the mountains or jungle, but in the city of New Delhi. Yet he had virtually adopted the renounced mode Shukdev had suggested, not to punish his body or prove himself pure and uncompromising, but because he had to live in poverty if he wanted to regularly produce Back to Godhead. For Abhay, it was a great labor of love, and purchasing paper for printing became a priority even before eating. Neglecting his personal needs for preaching was a manifestation of his faith in Krishna, of which Abhay suffered no scarcity. He had full faith that if he served Krishna, he would be provided for. To work alone was not an insurmountable problem. It was pleasant and simple. It was better than having to manage the neophyte inmates of the Gaudiya Sangha. The ecstasy of working hard to serve his spiritual master was not a problem. The problem was the condition of the world. And we have a memory from the person who was printing the Back to Godhead magazine. So, does someone wants to read this from here?
I can read. Nobody
Sure,
else.
Prabhu.
So, Kumar Jain. My first impression was that he was a nice person and straightforward. I felt pity also because of the conditions under which he would come. I know he didn't have even 25 paisa. He would come all the way on foot and without any breakfast or anything. He would come in the morning to the press, and when I would ask him, Swamiji, did you have anything to eat this morning? He would say, oh no, Mr. Jain, I just came because I had to see the proofs. That's all right, I would say. I will get breakfast for you. I would call for breakfast and then he would sit and work. He would do the proofreading himself. The printing was done by me, and most of the time he would like to be present when that final printing was being done. He would come in the morning around 7 and stay until he had seen all the proofs. It was a regular thing that he would come without breakfast. I would arrange for breakfast and we would sit across the table from one another for hours together. He was always talking on religious subjects only. But when we would be sitting, especially when waiting for the proofs to come, we would discuss many things. I felt that he knew quite a lot because he was a well-read person. He was more a friend than just a person coming to get things printed. He was a very simple man, straightforward in his habits. But his mission at that time was particularly to further the movement of Back to Godhead. His financial condition was very, very weak. Sometimes the printing would be difficult because he was not able to arrange for the paper. Many times I told him if he was feeling difficulty, why was he continuing? But he said, no, it is my mission and I will always carry it on as far as possible. I tried to accommodate him to the maximum possible extent, but he was a real pauper. I only did the printing and he had to arrange for the paper, so sometimes it was delayed. Although my job was printing, sometimes I would say, all right, you are so keen, I will give you the paper. But usually he would arrange it for himself. Usually he would arrange for it himself. Since we only did printing, he would bring it in a rickshaw. After picking up the copies from the printer, Abhay would walk around the city selling them. He would take a seat at a tea stand, and when someone sat beside him, Abhay would ask him, please, to take a copy of Back to Godhead. He also went to the homes and offices of people who had already donated and agreed to see him, and he sought out new contacts, sometimes on recommendation, or sometimes by going uninvited wherever he could find a potential reader. Once, when Abhay was approaching a well-to-do house, the owner came onto the second floor veranda and shouted, "Go away, we don't want you here." One time, while he was walking on a secluded street, pursuing his back to Godhead duties, a stray cow suddenly charged him, goring his side with her horn, and knocked him down. At first, he could not get up, and no one came to help him. As he lay there, he wondered why it had happened. Summer came, and the 110-degree heat made it almost intolerable to spend time out of doors. Hot, dust-laden winds blew in the city streets. Street-side hawkers closed their businesses during the day. In early morning, during 112-degree heat, a man collapsed in the street and died of heat stroke. But Abhay ignored the heat and the ordinary limitations of the body.
Yeah. And we know that Prabhupada, he got a heat stroke and he fell on the road, and some people had to take him to the hospital. Um, and so here we can see that Prabhupada is single-handedly doing everything needed for the printing of the Back to Godhead, even though he himself does not have money to eat food or eat breakfast. Um, and we hear that the League of Devotees organization that he set up in India, it wasn't much successful. He only got one disciple whom he initiated, but that didn't stop him from trying further. He to get a so he got a free ticket in the cargo ship uh, to come to US, uh, but he had to go through several obstacles to convince Sumati Morarji and get the visa and sponsorship. And at the time of leaving to America, everyone was saying that you are very old sannyasi, you will die at any moment. You should leave your body in Vrindavan. But Prabhupada answered that no, I have to perform this service for my Guru Maharaj. Others were saying that, oh, you would not get anything to eat because everybody eats only meat and potatoes over there. So Prabhupada said, that's okay, I will survive on bread and potatoes. So we can see how Prabhupada was so much intent upon serving the mission of his Guru Maharaj. That's all he cared about. Um, and then this one last thing that I want to read is about the journey to come to US, uh, the Prabhupada's consciousness during that time. So this is Prabhupada was traveling in the Jalduta. By the 23rd, the ship had put out to the Red Sea, where Srila Prabhupada encountered great difficulty. He noted in his diary rains, seasickness, dizziness, headache, no appetite, vomiting. The symptoms persisted, but it was more than seasickness. The pains in his chest made him think he would die at any moment. In 2 days, he suffered 2 heart attacks. He tolerated the difficulty, meditating on the purpose of his mission. But after 2 days of such violent attacks, he thought that if another one comes, he would certainly not survive. On the night of the second day, Prabhupada had a dream. Lord Krishna, in his many forms, was rowing a boat, and he told Prabhupada that he should not fear, but should come along. Prabhupada felt assured of Lord Krishna's protection, and the violent attacks did not reoccur. And in later conversation, Prabhupada mentioned that he saw Krishna, he was massaging his heart on the Jalduta. And here's a picture that devotees have made of Krishna massaging the heart of Prabhupada. And here's a picture of what Prabhupada saw in the dream. Krishna came on the boat with his various forms. And in that way, he became fearless. So, so in this way, a devotee is confident that Krishna will provide for my protection. So I will end with this quote of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada is saying in a letter, in order to attain the topmost perfection of this human form of life, One simply has to try for Krishna with enthusiasm and patience, and all obstacles will be overcome. If you are determined in this way to be his devotee, Krishna will provide some happy solution. But even if he puts us into extreme difficulty, we must always be prepared to consider everything as his special mercy, that he is testing my sincerity, and that this trouble is nothing to what I deserve. So, last thing I want to say is that if we realize the great sacrifice Prabhupada and many other devotees they have made to give us the holy name, the instructions of Krishna, and we see how Prabhupada left his peaceful life in Vrindavan to come to the West in such a weak health, how he gave up his night sleep to translate books for us, and went through so much struggle to build temples all over the world. If we realize this great sacrifice, then we would not take Krishna consciousness for granted. We will certainly become serious and sincere in our sadhana, in chanting the holy name, in reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and helping Srila Prabhupada in his preaching mission, and becoming an instrument of his compassion. So with that, I will stop. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you, very nice, very nicely, the class was very nice. So.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice class.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
Thank you, Mataji. That story about Prabhupada answering. Yeah, the story about Prabhupada answering that question about why build temple instead of a hospital, that was so amazing, because it's not a question that they asked only then. Even now, all people keep asking that same question over and over, even to this day, without realizing what they are doing. So that was a great story, very inspiring. Thank you very much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, so if nobody else has anything to say, we'll end here. Anybody has any comments?
Thank you, Mataji. That was a wonderful, wonderful lecture.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we'll stop here for today. Then we'll see you in the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.